Most cat owners never notice when it begins happening. At first, it just looks like affection. A little extra attention here, a small compromise there. You move something because your cat prefers it a certain way. You wake up earlier because she insists on breakfast at sunrise. You stop using half the couch because she looks too comfortable to disturb. None of it feels serious in the moment, but over time, something subtle changes inside the household. The cat slowly stops adapting to the environment because the environment starts adapting entirely to the cat. And that is what many people misunderstand about spoiled cats. Spoiled behavior rarely looks extreme. It rarely resembles aggression or obvious disobedience. Most of the time, it hides inside behaviors people describe as adorable, quirky, dramatic, or full of personality. People laugh at these habits, post them online, and treat them like harmless entertainment. But many of those small daily moments are actually signals. They reveal a cat whose tolerance for frustration, unpredictability, and boundaries has gradually weakened over time. Take one of the most common examples, the food bowl. You move the bowl a few inches while cleaning the kitchen floor. To you, it means absolutely nothing. But your cat walks into the room, freezes immediately, and stares at the bowl like something catastrophic has happened. She refuses to approach it. She sits at a distance and cries in outrage, looking at you as if you intentionally betrayed her trust. Most owners laugh at this reaction because it feels ridiculous. The bowl barely moves. But to a cat, location matters far more than humans realize. Cats are deeply territorial animals. Their emotional stability depends heavily on predictability. The placement of the food bowl, the litter box, the scratching post, the sleeping spot, these are not random objects scattered around the house. They are markers of structure. They create a map of safety the cat depends on every single day. When that map changes unexpectedly, even in a small way, some cats struggle to cope with it. And when owners immediately rush to restore everything exactly the way the cat prefers, the cat learns an important lesson: discomfort never has to be tolerated. That lesson quietly shapes behavior over months and years. The more a cat experiences a world that constantly bends around her preferences, the less capable she becomes of handling even minor disruptions. A delayed meal feels unbearable. A moved object feels offensive. A closed door feels emotionally devastating. Eventually, the cat stops learning flexibility altogether. Then there is the nighttime behavior almost every cat owner recognizes. It is 3 in the morning. The house is silent. Suddenly your cat jumps directly onto your chest and stares into your face. If that fails, she scratches at the bedroom door. If that fails, she begins pushing objects off the nightstand one by one with surgical precision. A glass, a pen, your phone. Each item falls dramatically onto the floor while she watches calmly to see which sound finally forces you to react. And eventually, exhausted and half asleep, you get up. Not because you want to, because resisting feels impossible. What many people fail to understand is how intentional this behavior becomes over time. Cats are extraordinary observers. They spend enormous amounts of time studying patterns, reactions, and consequences. Your cat did not randomly discover these tactics. She experimented until she identified exactly what works. Maybe soft meowing gets ignored, but knocking over the charger always wakes you up. Maybe scratching the door for 30 seconds does nothing, but scratching it for 2 full minutes guarantees a response. Cats remember these patterns with impressive accuracy. Every time you respond, you strengthen the behavior. From the cat's perspective, the system is working perfectly. She performs an action. The human reacts. The desired outcome appears. Over enough repetition, the behavior becomes automatic and deeply embedded into the nightly routine. The exact same pattern often appears around food. You put down perfectly fresh food. 20 minutes later, The cat sniffs it dramatically, looks offended, and walks away. You feel concerned, so you replace it with something fresher, softer, or more appealing. The next day, it happens again and again. Eventually, the cat learns that refusal creates upgrades. This is the moment where instinct turns into conditioning. Yes, cats naturally prefer fresh-smelling food. That instinct protects them from spoiled prey in the wild. But a bowl of clean, dry kibble sitting for 20 minutes is not dangerous. When a cat rejects safe food and successfully demands a replacement every time, she is no longer responding purely to instinct. She is responding to reinforcement. And this behavior can create genuine problems later in life. Cats accustomed to constant variety and immediate replacements often become extremely difficult to transition onto therapeutic diets when medical conditions appear. Kidney disease, digestive disorders, allergies, all may require specialized food. But a cat who has spent years learning that if I refuse this, something better arrives becomes far harder to help. Another misunderstood sign appears during play. You walk through the hallway, and suddenly your cat launches from behind the couch, grabs your ankle, bites your foot, and sprints away at full speed. Most people laugh. The attack is tiny, fast, and honestly pretty funny. Cats look harmless compared to larger animals. But imagine a large dog doing the exact same thing with the same intensity. The reaction would immediately feel more serious. What gets overlooked is that hunting behavior is not optional for cats. It is not simply a cute instinct. It is a deeply rooted psychological need. Cats are wired to stalk, chase, pounce, grab, and capture moving targets. That entire behavioral sequence matters to their mental well-being. When owners fail to provide proper hunting-style play, the cat does not simply abandon the urge. She redirects it. Feet moving under blankets become prey. Hands dangling near the couch become prey. Ankles walking through the kitchen become prey. And the situation worsens when humans accidentally reward the behavior. Pulling your foot away quickly makes the chase more exciting. Wiggling fingers in front of the cat teaches her that human skin belongs inside the hunting game. Slowly, the boundary between acceptable play and genuine aggression becomes blurred. Not because the cat is mean, because nobody clearly taught her where the line exists. The same quiet pattern appears in social space inside the home. People often joke about cats taking over furniture. A tiny 10-pound animal sprawled across an entire couch while the human balances awkwardly on the edge looks funny in photographs. But in feline social behavior, space carries meaning. Cats naturally associate the safest, warmest, most elevated, and most central locations with status and security. Important individuals occupy valuable spaces. These patterns exist even in loosely organized cat colonies. So when your cat consistently occupies the center of the bed, the middle cushion of the sofa, or directly on top of your laptop, and you immediately move every single time without hesitation, you reinforce a subtle social dynamic repeatedly. Again, this does not mean your cat is attempting world domination. Cats are not tiny dictators plotting control of the household, but they do repeat behaviors that consistently succeed and provide comfort. And perhaps the clearest example of imbalance appears in attention itself. You call your cat's name. She hears you perfectly. Research has shown cats recognize their names very well. Yet she remains completely motionless, staring at the wall as if you do not exist. An hour later, she walks over on her own terms, sits beside you, and demands affection immediately. And naturally, you respond. Most people interpret this as independence. That's just how cats are, they say. But sometimes it reflects something more specific, a relationship where one side initiates all interaction while the other simply waits and complies. Over time, this creates emotional asymmetry. The cat learns that attention arrives exactly when she requests it, while responding to the human's requests remains entirely optional. Another behavior owners often misunderstand is what feels like punishment after separation. You leave home for 2 days. When you return, your cat ignores you dramatically, walks away, or acts cold and offended for hours. Some cats even urinate outside the litter box after stressful absences, and humans immediately experience guilt. They apologize, offer treats, increase affection, speak in soft apologetic voices. It is important to be fair here. Cats absolutely can experience separation stress. Bonded cats often feel genuine anxiety when important humans disappear from their environment. That emotional response is real. But many cats also learn something alongside it. Dramatic behavior changes human reactions. Withdrawal creates extra affection. Refusal creates rewards. Visible displeasure creates attention. Again, this is not revenge in the human sense. It is learned communication shaped through repetition. Then there is the constant demand for physical attention. Some cats do not simply want to sit nearby. They specifically sit on your keyboard while you type, across your book while you read, directly in front of your phone while you scroll. They position themselves exactly where your attention is focused elsewhere. And if you gently move them, they come back immediately with endless patience. This behavior is not only about warmth or affection. At a deeper level, the cat is attempting to redirect your attention back toward herself. Cats raised in environments with non-stop human engagement sometimes develop an unhealthy dependency on constant attention. And while that dependency looks emotionally touching on the surface, it can actually create chronic anxiety for the animal. A cat who cannot comfortably tolerate even short periods of emotional distance is not necessarily secure. Often, she is the opposite. One of the strongest signs of all appears not in the cat's behavior, but in yours. You begin reorganizing your entire life around her preferences without fully realizing it. You leave social events early because of feeding schedules. You avoid inviting guests because your cat dislikes strangers. You choose furniture based on how well it hides fur. You quietly calculate every decision around the cat's comfort before considering your own. Individually, none of these choices are unreasonable. Caring for an animal naturally requires adjustment and responsibility. But there is an important question worth asking: who is adapting to whom? Because a cat who never experiences challenge, waiting, disappointment, or change loses opportunities to develop resilience. She never discovers that temporary discomfort is survivable. She never learns flexibility because flexibility was never required. And finally, there is the most emotionally difficult sign of all: the guilt. You say no to your cat for once. You refuse the extra treat. You do not get out of bed at 3 in the morning. You move her gently off the keyboard and continue working. And immediately, guilt appears. A quiet feeling rises in your chest. She will be upset. She will think, I don't love her. I'm being cruel. I'm failing as an owner. But this is where many people misunderstand what cats actually need emotionally. Cats do not need endless permission. They do not need a completely frictionless life where every desire is instantly satisfied. What creates truly secure cats is something much simpler and much healthier: consistency, predictability, calm leadership. The cat feels safest around a human whose behavior remains understandable and stable. Someone who does not constantly change rules based on emotional pressure. Someone whose responses remain calm, confident, and reliable. In the emotional language cats understand, structure creates safety. Boundaries create safety. Predictability creates safety. And a calm, consistent no often provides far more emotional stability than a nervous, guilty yes. So if you recognized your own cat in many of these behaviors, do not rush to blame yourself. None of this develops from cruelty or neglect. In fact, it usually develops from love that slowly lost its boundaries. But a spoiled cat is not automatically a happy cat. A cat who cannot tolerate waiting, frustration, change, or limits often experiences more stress than owners realize. She becomes emotionally fragile because the world has been endlessly softened around her. The good news is that cats are adaptable. Their behavior can change when the environment changes, not through punishment, not through harshness, through clarity, consistency, and patience. Because your cat is not trying to dominate you. She is simply living inside the world your behavior taught her to expect. And if that world changes calmly and consistently, she will slowly learn to change with it too.